Hello everybody, and welcome to my next Houdini tutorial. Now this tutorial, it may be several parts, it may be one long part. I'm not real sure at the moment. I do know this is going to take a little while to finish. We're going to model this little DJ mixer here. As you notice, it's really low poly, and that's on purpose because these are beginner tutorials. And also you can take this into another app and go to town and detail it all you want. And to say up front, if we was modeling this in Modo or Maya, I'd get it done twice as fast, okay, and probably twice as accurate, twice as good, and with twice as good techniques. But this is not a Modo or Maya or Maya, however you pronounce it. I think it's Maya tutorial. This is a Houdini modeling tutorial. So please excuse the awkwardness or the clunkiness because I am not as proficient in modeling with Houdini as I am in Modo or Maya. So naturally, would be able to get it finished quicker and smoother in those other apps. But we're going to do it in Houdini because people ask me all the time, the only modeling tutorial you have is of that jet and you only go halfway through, even if that. So can we please do a decent little modeling tutorial in Houdini? And we can, and we're going to do this, and we're going to keep it really low poly. You can see I have one node here. When I click into my node, the network looks huge, but trust me, it's not that hard. This is not going to be a big deal. So let's go ahead, go back to the top, let me save my file, and then we'll start new. And here we go. Now let's go to our create shelf and let's control click a box. Now we have our box node. We're going to start with the spot in the part in the middle here. Okay, so let's go ahead and click into our box node, and let me zoom in here. I can see what's going on. And I'm going to hit my T key, select my box, hit my T key so I can transform it. It's going to add an edit node. So I'm going to switch to my scale tool, and let's flatten this down a little bit like this. And now let's scale it out about like so, and let's lengthen it a little bit longer, about like that. Yeah, that's looking okay. Okay, let's go to flat wire shaded so we can see what's going on. Okay, so now we've got this little box. Let's turn off our grid. Now let's go in here and slice up our box because we want to put these little slices in there, these little holes. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go to our polygon shelf. Let's select our edge loop tool, and let's go ahead and put a couple edge loops in here. I want to put one about right here and right here. I'm going to put another one, let's see, about right here and right here. That makes two. Now I want to put two more. Put one about here and another one about right there like that. Okay, now that makes that one. Now let's go ahead and let's put one, I'm going to say about right here, and then maybe one up about right here. Okay, hit the S tool to go back into select, and now we have this mesh cut up. So let's hit the 4 key to go into primitive mode, and let's select this primitive, and let's select that's it. Let's hit the delete key and get rid of those primitives. Now those are gone. Now I'm going to add a couple more edge loops in here. I'm going to put one about right here, one about right here. Now let's go in here and select this middle primitive and delete it. So this one's kind of shorter than these. So now you can see we have these. It's hard to tell, but those 3 holes are cut out. So let's go to our edge mode by hitting the 3 key, and let's select the edge, Shift L to loop it like that, poly extrude, and let's take it straight down like so, like that. Okay, and now that we have that, let's go ahead and hit poly cap, and that'll cap that off, and there's that. Okay, so now let's do the same thing over here. Let's select this edge, we'll loop it around, we'll poly extrude, we'll bring it down, and we'll poly cap. And one more time, We'll loop this last one, poly extrude down, and poly cap. Alright, now we need to go in and put in our loop slices to sure this mesh up so it'll hold its shape. Okay, so let's go ahead and select edge loop, and we're going to put one right down the edges here like this and like this. We'll put one here. We'll put one down on this end. Okay, we also want to go around the edges here like this, up top, close to bottom. Okay, now let's get inside here. Well, let's go ahead and let's run one right this way, right there, and then up here, like that. Okay, let's run one down along the sides of our cuts, our little notches we cut out here and here. We're going to do the same thing down here this way. We're just shoring it up by putting loop slices in every corner next to every edge. Like so. Okay. Now let's go in and shore up the inside by putting a loop slice around the top and bottom of the insides of these. Okay, now a couple more we need to do. Let's run one along this way, along the inside. Like so. Along this way here. And here. And we're going to run one up this way. And right up that way, like that. Okay, let's have a look here and see if we've got everything that I think we need to get. And we can see if we do when we go to subdivide this. So let's go ahead and select our subdivide node. Let's select our mesh and hit return. And now, as you can see, if we go up to smooth shaded, we have our little cuts put in there. Okay? Good deal, good deal, good deal. Now the next thing we need to do, let's go ahead and apply our little bitty knobs. Okay? So we'll go back up to our object level. We'll call this the mixer base. Okay? There we go. Now let's go ahead and click a create shelf. Let's go ahead and control click a tube. I'm going to work with polygons, so let's tab into our tube object and let's select polygon. Let's give it, go to details, and let's give it 24 columns to make it more round. Okay. And let's go ahead and let's see, let's go back to tube. Let's go ahead and up our height just a little bit there. Now we need to cap our ends, and if we use end caps, we're going to need to go in and fuse our points. So instead of doing that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to edge mode and select this loop, go to polygon shelf and select poly cap. That'll cap that without having to fuse the points. And we'll do the same thing to the bottom. Okay. Now that's that. Okay. Now let's go ahead and select the whole thing. Let's hit the E key for scale. And let's scale this bad boy down. Now we'll make it taller. And we'll scale it down some more. And we'll make it real skinny. Well, not real skinny, but okay. It's looking okay. It's a little bit tall. So let's make it shorter, a little bit skinnier. Just work with your shape here. Now how tall do we want this? Does that look okay to you guys? Let's hit the T for transform and let's move this back just to roughly put it in place. You can see how tall this is. It's way too tall, but that's not a problem. We'll put this back in place here with the E key for our scale so we can shrink her down. And let's take it down. How's that looking? Does that look like a decent little knob to start with? I think that'll work. So let's go on in here and let's just try to shape this a little bit. Let's go make sure we go to our, so we can see our wireframe here. And let's go to our edge loop, and we're going to put an edge loop in about right here, like so. We're going to put one in close to the bottom, which is way down here, like so. And what else do we need to do? That's all for now. Let's go ahead and select this top primitive here, and let's scale it in, like so. Let's get our edge loop. Let's go ahead and make another edge loop about right, I don't know, we could go down here, I guess. Let's do one right there. Okay, now let's see. Let's go to our edge mode, and let's select this edge and loop it around, and we're going to scale it in, like so. You can see we're getting this little shape. So let's go to our edge loop tool again, and we're going to run an edge loop right on this side, right on this side, this side, this side, one right up here. You can go to primitive mode if you want, and you can even poly bevel that top once. Okay, so now if we try to subdivide this, you can see it subdivides quite well. So now we need to put a few of these on there, and if they're not big enough for you, that's not a problem. We can, let's go back before our subdivide node. Okay, and we'll scale it up like so. Now it's a little bit fatter of a knob. Okay. Okay, so now let's see what we got here. Straighten out my nodes. Let's go back to my subdivide node and visualize it. And there we go. Okay, so now let's go ahead and come over here and hit tab and say copy. Start typing copy, and let's lay in a copy SOP. And we're going to want about at least 5 copies to start with. Okay, so we'll put 5 in there. Then we'll pipe our subdivide node into our copy node, visualize our copy node, and then we're going to translate this over in the Z, like this. And that looks pretty good. Yes, sir. Okay, so now we have our copy. Let's go ahead and tab in another copy SOP. And let's pipe our old copy into our new copy, visualize it. We'll make 4 copies of this one, and let's translate it forward, like so. Alright. Now let's go back up to our object level, and we can see now we're going to turn this and call it knobs. Now we have our mixer base and our mixer knobs, but we want to add a couple more things to our mixer knobs container. So let's go back into our knobs container here, and let's go to create, and let's bring in a box node. And there's our box node. Let's go ahead and visualize this, template it, and let's visualize our box. Okay, so let's select our box, and let's we're going to have to scale this, so let's hit the E key. Let's scale it down. T for translate, we'll move it up. E. We don't quite want that. Well, that's okay. Let's go ahead and just, for now, let's select this top primitive, and we'll just scale that top primitive in, like so. Alright. So let's go ahead and scale it out longer, make it smaller, and let's move this over here into place, about right there. Okay, now let's make sure we can see our wireframe. So before I completely reposition it for good, let's go into our polygon shelf, and let's make sure we use our edge loop, and let's put some edge loops in on this, here, 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 and across the top on both edges, like so. Okay, excuse me. Okay, just subdivide this, and there we go. Now we can go ahead and roughly position this into place. Okay, let's put it up towards the top here, like so. Alright, now that we have that selected, let's go ahead and go to our modify shelf and select duplicate. This will just duplicate that, and we can pull that straight over here, and we can pull it down a little. Like so. Okay. Now I want to do that again. I'm going to duplicate this, pull it down here, and we're going to position it on this one. Now when I rotate this, it's going to rotate kind of awkward because I haven't went in and changed it. So we'll let this rotate around by minus 90 degrees, like so. And now I'm going to position it back in place here. This one we might have to scale to make a little bit not as wide. So if we hit the E key, we can make it not quite as short. I mean as long. Okay. Now we just got one thing left to do to our mixer, and that's put the bass on it. Okay. So let's go back into our knobs here. And now, as you can see, we have our knobs, so we need to bring these two together. So let's tab in a merge. And let's pop both of these into our merge. Let me zoom in here and turn off our template. Okay, here we go. Now we can see all of our stuff. So let's go ahead and go to create. Let's bring in a box. Let's template our merge node and view our box. And let's go ahead and set up the base of this. So we'll pull it down here. I'm going to make it wider, longer, and wider both. Maybe not quite that thick. Let's see how that's looking there. That's not too bad. That looks okay. So let's go ahead and go to primitive mode, and let's scale this bottom primitive in, like so. Go to polygon, edge loop. We're going to put an edge loop in right here. We're going to put another one in right here, and of course along the sides. So let's see, do we got everything now? Does that got it? We'll see when we subdivide it. So we'll say subdivide, we'll select it, hit return, and that'll do it. Okay, let's go back up to object level. But before we do that, we need to pop our subdivide node there that we just added into this merge. That way, when we visualize it, we see them all. Okay? And there's that. So let's go back up to object level. Let's turn off our wireframe. Alright, and we have the beginnings of our DJ turntables. As you can see, these are two nodes. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select these two nodes like this. Go to modify, combine. And that's going to combine those. Now you can see I have my whole network here. It went in and combined everything. Combined. That's not even a word. And when I go back up to my object level, I have one node. Marvelous, 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 marvelous. Okay, guys, now that we got our mixer, our low poly mixer in the middle there took care of, let's go ahead and start creating one of our turntables. We'll go to the Create tab, and of course, we'll control click a box. This will throw in a box. Let's dive down into our box so we can do any adjustments from there. I'm going to select my box, hit the T key for transform. That'll add an edit node over there, as you can see. I'm going to pull it over here, hit the E key for scale, and I'm going to scale this flat like last time and scale it up. Make it a little wider. Okay, that's looking pretty good about right there. Okay, so this is the only thing we're going to be doing to this. So let's go ahead and go to, so we can see our wireframe. We'll go to Polygon, Edge Loop, and let's go ahead and slice this up. Shore the edges up by putting edge loops along the edges. So let's go ahead and subdivide this. And boom, there we go. Now we got a nice block there. Okay, to start our turntable with, but it's a little thick for my taste, so let's thin it down a little bit like this. Okay, that's looking pretty good there. Now let's go ahead. Now we can do this one of several ways. We can go ahead and add a circle here, or we can add a circle to the object level and just combine it. So that's what I'm going to do, just to show you guys you can do it that way. Let's go back up to object level, create. Let's control click a tube. Okay, then let's go into our tube. Let's make sure it's a polygon. With under details, we'll make sure it has 24 columns. Okay, now what do we need to do? We need to go to our edge mode and polycap these like so. And we'll polycap the other one when I get to the bottom of it there. Okay, let's go ahead and select it. Let's move it over. Let's move it up. Now I can polycap this by selecting this loop, Shift L, polycap. Okay, now let's go ahead and shape this. We'll scale it flatter. This isn't going to be hard at all. Like so. We want to make sure it's big enough. We'll move it down. Like so. And we want to even it up the best we can, which is about like that. Now that we got that, let's go ahead and select our top primitive and let's poly extrude. We'll poly extrude and we'll pull it up a little bit and we'll scale it in like so. Okay, and now that we've done that, let's go ahead and select that. We'll say poly bevel. That'll bevel the top. Let's go to edge loop and let's run an edge loop or two around each of these like so. Okay, now we can subdivide this and position it. So we'll select it, subdivide it, and position it a little bit. Now we have us a nice little turntable in there. Okay, if we go back up to object level, you can see it's all working fine, and we can just combine these things later. Okay, alright, now that that's on there, let's go ahead and quickly make our little buttons. Okay, so again, we can start from the object level or dive into one of these scenes. We'll just start from the object level. Go to Create Shelf. We will actually, I guess we could go into our tube object here. Let's go back up to the very top and scroll down to our polycaps. And I'm going to select my tube and all my nodes down to the second polycap. We're going to copy and paste it like that. Okay, now we have this pre-made tube. Now I can select it and we can scale it. And this is going to be one of our buttons. Let's go ahead and move it into place with our T key. We'll put it down here in the corner. Like so. We don't want it to be too thick either. We want it to be, So before we completely position it, I'll go in and I'll add some loop slices to tighten it up a little bit. So let's go up, make sure we can see our wireframe. Let's go ahead, polygon, edge loop. Let's just add a couple edge loops in, like so. Okay. Now I can subdivide this to see what it's going to look like. And it's not too bad. Let's squish it down a little, like so. Move it down into place. That looks okay about right there. Okay. Let's see what we got here. Let's take out our subdivide node. Okay, because I want to see what it looks like. Because I want to bevel this top by going to my primitive and saying poly bevel. That way, when we subdivide this, I'm not getting that funky top, that funky looking top like we did before. Okay, now we got that button in there. We can go ahead and select it again. Go to Modify, Duplicate, and we can scoot this over, scale it down, and make it longer. Like so. And then all we got to do is put it right back in place. Okay, how's that look? We're getting there. Okay, that's still a little big for my taste. So let's scale it down a little bit more. That's a little bit better. Okay, that's that. So now let's go ahead and we need to make a couple copies of this. So instead of duplicating it, let's just tab in a copy SOP. And we're going to make 3 copies. And we'll pop it in there. Visualize it. And we'll translate it. Like so. Actually, let's go up another copy. Don't need those. So what I'm going to do is select these and scale them down and bring them back into place. Like voila! Now we seem to have our 3 little buttons. Very good, very good. Okay. Now all we need to do is merge these together. So let's bring in a merge. And there we go. There's that. Go to our object level. Turn off our wireframe. And this is what we got so far. If you want this to be a little bigger, that's not a problem. You can go into your tube object and make it as big as you want. So let's select it. Make it bigger. Let's go back in there. I need to visualize the right node, the merge node. Okay, now the only thing left to do is our little, what do you call it? Our little needle, and maybe put a base on this and then duplicate it. So let's go ahead and select all three of these and combine. And boom, that combines them all into one network. We go to object level. Here's what we got so far. Alrighty, Rooney, let's get started. Want to? Our last little segment here. Let's go to create and let's control click a box. Let's dive into our new box node and let's hit the T key here. We'll transform it into place. This is just going to be our base. I'll bring it down. We'll scale it with the E key. Up, 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 up and away. And that's still, it's looking okay. Alright. We don't want it to be so thick, do we? But we do want it to be thicker than the mixer in the middle. That looks okay. That looks okay. It's still a little uneven. But I think that'll do. Let's go ahead and see our wireframe. Go to polygon. And let's go ahead and split our edge loop. Oh, actually, you know what? Let's not do that. Let's go to the bottom. Select our bottom primitive. And let's scale that in. Like so. Then we can select our edge loops. And put our edge loops in. So let's do that. Here. 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 There. And I'm thinking maybe here. And here. I think that'll pretty much do it. Let's go ahead and select it and subdivide it. And there we go. Now we have our base to our turntable. Go back up to object level. We'll keep that a separate object for now. Let's go ahead and start with our little needle. So we're going to create. We're going to lay down a tube. We're going to go into our tube and we're going to work on it. So let's go ahead and kind of move it over here into place. Let's make sure we change it to polygon. And you can see that's not gonna help us any, so let's get rid of our edit node. Make sure it's on polygon. Remember, we'll go to detail. Let's make our columns 24. Okay, now let's go to our edge mode, loop our top edge, and polycap it. And I'll polycap the bottom when we move it into play. So let's go ahead and do that. Move this up, over. Let's select our bottom and polycap that. I just selected it by hitting the S key to go into select mode, if you're wondering how I'm doing that. Or come over here and click this. Hit the S key for select mode. I hit the 3 key to go to edge mode. I selected my edge and hit Shift L to loop it. Then I hit polycap. Okay? So let's go ahead and shrink this down. Make it thinner. Like so. And let's put it into place. Houdini works so well in the viewport. I can get so many more polygons in Houdini in the viewport before it slows down than I can most other apps. Now granted, if I was doing this in Modo, it'd probably look a little bit better, a little bit smoother, a little bit cleaner, and I'd be done a lot faster. But again, this is not the point of this video. The point of this video is to show you modeling in Houdini. Okay, now we have that put into place here. Let's go ahead and run a couple loop slices. Or edge loops, I'm sorry. I call them loop slices from working in Modo so much. Like so. Now let's select our top primitive, and we're going to say poly extrude. Okay, and then we're just going to scale this puppy in like this. Then we're going to hit the Q key to refire the command. So hit the Q key, and that refires the poly extrude. And I'm going to scale in just a little bit more. Boop, and that's it. Then I'm going to hit the Q key again, and I'm going to come up like this, just a tad. If you can see that, I'm just barely coming up a tad. That way I don't have to go back in there and insert an edge loop later. Hit the Q key. Let's bring it on up, like so. I'm going to scale this in like this. I'm going to poly extrude again by clicking it on my shelf. I want to bring this up like so. Poly extrude, refire it by hitting the Q command, the Q key. And let's bevel this in like this. Q key one more time, bevel in, Q key, bevel up, just a little bit, Q key, bevel up, just a little bit, and you can scale it in if you want. Depends on the look you're going for. And then we can poly bevel that top, okay? So now let's go ahead and run our loop slices. So we'll pick our edge loop, and we'll go in and we'll run one right on the edge here. Around this edge, around this edge, and we're going to put one right in the middle here, like so. And we need to get a little closer. Let's run one around the top, like so. Okay, let's go to select with the S key, hit the 3 for edge. Let's select this edge we laid in the middle, Shift L to loop it, and let's scale it out. That'll help round that a little bit. Okay, so now let's select our whole thing and let's hit subdivide. See what happens here. It looking pretty good. Yes, sir. Okay, so now let's go ahead and add our little bar. So we'll go back up to object level. I want to keep this all in separate scenes just to keep you all, you know, it's easier because we can combine them all later. But just note, like we did at first when we made this mixer, we can do it all from within one node instead of going back out and then just combining them all. You can do it all within one node. It's up to you. So let's go ahead and control click our tube. Once again, let's go inside. Let's transform it up. Let's bring it over here, roughly position this in place. Let's make sure our tube, oh, well, no, we can't do that. Let's get rid of our edit node first. First, before I do anything, I want to go to the detail tab, or make it a polygon, go to my detail tab, make it 24 columns. Okay. Now we can go in here and add an edit node or move it however you want. I'm working in the viewport by selecting it and hitting T, and it automatically adds an edit node. You could work backwards and go ahead and tab in an edit node here and put the edit node down, connect the node, then come over here and work. It just depends on how you like to work. Now that we have that, let's hit the S key to go to select mode, click to deselect, 3 key to go to edge mode, click the top edge, shift L to loop, polygon tab, polygon shelf, polycap. Same thing on the bottom, select the loop, shift L, polycap. Alright, now let's go ahead, let's select our tube, let's make sure it's on the Z axis, okay? So now let's go back down to our polycap node. Now we can move this again. So let's go ahead and translate this over. I like to have a transform or edit node for every single move I make, just about, so I can come back later and see what's going on. Let's scale this down. We don't want it to be that big, do we? Make it longer, like so. Now how thick you want this thing is completely up to you, how long you want it. Let's zoom in here. Now I'm going to have to make it small enough to fit I want it to be inside that top piece there. Right there. So I'm going to scale it down until it kindly halfway fits in there. Now you can see it's almost just about as big as that little top portion. Now as you can see, it fits on that top portion quite well, and it might need to be a little longer. I'm not real up on stereo equipment and how accurate it's going to be and stuff like that. It might be too long, it might not be, I don't know. So please excuse me if I'm not very accurate there. Okay, now we have that in place. Let's go ahead here. Let's select this little primitive. We're going to go to poly extrude. We're going to poly extrude it out just a tad. We're going to hit the Q key again and bring it out some more, like so. Hit the Q key again, bring it out just a little bit more in the same direction. Hit the Q key again. We're going to bring it forward just a tad. Hit the Q key again. We're going to bring it forward a lot. Q key, forward just a tad, and then Q key, we'll scale it in just a tad. Q key, scale it the rest of the way in. Q key, in a little bit more. Q key, up. Q key, out again. Q key, up a little bit more. Wow. You all might have a hard time following that. But I promise, if you go back and watch it, it's not that hard. Whenever I say Q key, it's just refiring the poly extrude, is all it's doing. Let's go ahead and add an edge loop in right here. Like so. Okay. Now there's that. Let's go ahead and go to this end here. And we want, let's put an edge loop about right there. Let's put it down here. Go to primitives. I'm going to select all those primitives. I'm going to poly extrude. I'm going to say keep points, use normals. I'm going to pull this out like this. Like so. I'm going to go to edge loop. And I'm going to put an edge loop in right there. Edge loop in on the back side. Up and down. Here. Here. On this end. Okay, now there's that. So far so good. Now we just need to add our little box at the end, and we can add that from within here. Okay, we can tab in a box node and then merge them together with a merge node, or we can go back up to object level and then combine them all. Let's go back up to object level, create, let's zoom out, let's control click our box, let's go into our box, and let's first of all let's move it with the T key. Good enough. Now we're going to use the E key to scale this puppy. We want it flat, and we want it small. Let's zoom in here and see what we got. Let's make it as even as we can in the middle. Okay, that looks pretty good there. Let's move it forward to where it's just barely touching like that. Okay. Now, we just need to do some loop slices. Let's go to our polygon tool. We'll say edge loop. We're going to put one in close to the bottom here, and we're going to put one in about right there. S key for select tool. Let's go to our primitive. We'll select this primitive and we'll extrude it, and we'll pull this out like this, just a little bit. Well, no, let's just pull it out like so. Pull it out a little bit to about right there, and let's scale it in. We'll hit the Q key to refire our poly extrude, and we'll bring it out. This time we'll scale it outwards. We'll hit the Q key, bring it forward some more. We'll hit the Q key, we'll bring it forward some more, and scale in just on the sides like so. Okay, now we're going to add some edge loops here. So let's go to edge loop, and we're going to add our edge loops. So let's go ahead and add one up and down through here, and up and down through here, like so. Let's add one around here, this section, like so. Let's add one on this side, and close to the back. We'll add one around the bottom here, and maybe one right under here, like so. Let's see what else we got here. Let's do one right around the top, like that. Now let's subdivide it and see what it comes out to be. And that looks pretty good. Now all we got to do is go to primitive mode, select. Let's select a few of these, like so. And we'll say poly extrude. We'll bring it down just a tad, and we'll hit the Q key again, bring it down some more, the Q key, and bring it down again. Alright, now let's go up to our object level. We'll select all of them, modify, combine, and boom, if you notice, now we got a huge network here. If you hit the L key, it will lay it out for you, because it's combined everything. And you can go in here and clean this up even some more. You can see how we have a bunch of display merges here. If you wanted to, you could disconnect these and plug them straight in to this merge and just have one display merge if you wanted. So there's that. Let's go out here to the main level. Let's go inside here and let's see. Let's go to our top view. I'm going to go to my primitives. I'm going to select all those like so. And now you can do this one of several ways. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to bring it over. Let's go to object level now. Smooth shaded. And boom. There is our DJ turntable mixer modeled in Houdini. And all we got is one node to show for it. So there we go. I hope you all have learned something from this rough, basic, medieval tutorial. This just hopefully just to get familiar a little bit with modeling and using the basic tools. I kept it low poly and stuck to the very, very basic of tools that I could. And we didn't get into any detail. You're more than welcome to add all the detail you want. Heck, we didn't even add a little needle. I forgot about that. Forget it. We're done. And I hope you enjoyed watching this little modeling series for Houdini. And we'll see you next time. Happy modeling.